The ice bucket protested with a sharp crack as I wrestled it from the freezer. Maybe the plastic was just brittle. Maybe it was the anxiety thrumming beneath my skin. I wasn't even supposed to be fetching ice. Someone had just announced, the ice supply is depleted. And before anyone could volunteer, I'd offered to replenish it. It was an excuse to escape. The bonfire smoke was clinging to my clothes, and the forced cheer around me felt suffocating. I was halfway across the den, juggling the half-filled bucket, when I overheard it. Laughter. Not mine. Not Aurora's, but his. I froze, my pulse quickening. The house was supposed to be empty. Everyone was enjoying the fire outside. I'd just seen them, handed Aurora a skewer of marshmallows not even 5 minutes ago. Then it came again, a low, throaty chuckle. It was Aurora's, but not the polite little laugh she offered during dull small talk. This one was deep, intimate, a sound I hadn't heard in what felt like forever. Then a soft bump, the muffled sound of something hitting a wall. My feet felt glued to the hardwood, but my body ignored them. I drifted towards the hallway, as if guided by an invisible force. The door to the study was ajar, not enough to reveal anything, just enough to suggest I shouldn't be looking. I stood there, silent. Then I heard it. Her voice, a hushed murmur, thick with a sweetness that made my stomach churn. I couldn't decipher the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Then his voice. It wasn't a relative. Not her brother, not her uncle, not a distant cousin. It was Felix. And that's when the bottom fell out of my world. Felix wasn't invited. Felix wasn't even aware we were having a gathering. Felix was the guy who borrowed my pressure washer last summer and never returned it. The same guy who once messaged my wife a silly gif at 3 a.m., claiming it was accidental. The guy she insisted was just being friendly. I stood there, paralyzed for what felt like an eternity. Then the door began to open. Just a crack, revealing a sliver of bare skin. Her back. She was adjusting her dress. She didn't notice me. Neither did he. He emerged behind her, chuckling at something she'd said. His shirt was askew. They turned towards the hallway that led to the backyard. I reacted swiftly, but not towards them. I bolted into the powder room and locked the door. And that's where I remained. I still clutched in my hands, melting rapidly, water trickling down my arm, the plastic bucket fogging. I stared at my reflection for what felt like an age before I realized I was smirking. Not because I was okay, but because something inside me had quietly, irrevocably, snapped. I would never be the same after this. 11 minutes. That's not an estimate. I watched the second hand on the ornate clock tick around and around. 11 complete rotations while water from the melting ice seeped through my shirt and dripped onto the floor in slow, humiliating drops. I didn't wipe it away. I didn't even flinch. I just stood there, staring into the mirror, barely recognizing the stranger staring back. I wasn't enraged. Not yet. Rage is a consuming inferno. I felt more like steam, silent, scalding, invisible until it's too late. They were back outside by then. I heard the patio door slide open and closed. Voices rose in volume. The sound of glasses clinking, patio furniture scraping against the stone. She was laughing with someone again, probably pretending nothing had happened. Maybe she assumed I was still out back, lighting the torches, being praised for being such an attentive host. Maybe she hoped I would never re-enter the house at all. But I did. And now I possessed a knowledge I was never meant to have. The first time I walked down that hallway, I was just a man seeking ice. The second time, I was a man in search of answers. I opened the powder room door slowly, silently. I didn't want to engage with her. Not yet. I didn't want to even look at her. I needed confirmation, something tangible, something undeniable, because a pathetic part of me still wanted to believe I was mistaken. I bypassed the den, glancing towards the backyard through the blinds. She was there, holding a drink, smiling at her mother. No trace of him. Felix must have slipped away as he always did, unnoticed and unannounced. But her phone was sitting on the kitchen island. Unlocked. I never check her phone. Not once in 10 years. Not because I have complete trust. Because I am afraid of what I might find. But that day, I was already wounded. What was a little more pain? I didn't go to her messages. I navigated to the photo app, recently deleted album. There were 4 images, blurred, dimly lit, all taken indoors. One showed an appetizer on the edge of our guest bed. Another was a photo of someone's hand clutching what looked like a throw pillow. The third, and it pains me to even write this, was a mirror selfie, her wearing that green silk dress, the one with the delicate straps, except one of the straps was undone. She was holding the phone in one hand. Her other hand was resting on someone's chest. His chest. His wedding band glinting on his finger. It wasn't mine. The fourth image was just blackness. Probably accidental. But when I increased the brightness and squinted, I could make out two details: the hem of her dress and his belt on the floor. I recoiled from the island as if I'd touched a live wire. She didn't delete the photos because she felt guilty. She deleted them because she was certain no one would ever discover them. And I was still clutching a bucket of melted ice like a clueless idiot. So, acting on instinct, I walked back outside with the ice. I smiled. I poured it into the cooler as if nothing was amiss. She glanced at me briefly and asked, "Are you all right? You were gone a while." I looked into her eyes, those same eyes that had sparkled at me during our wedding vows as if I was her haven. I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." Then I added, "I ran into Felix. He was just leaving." I swear I saw her pupils dilate. Not her entire face. Not even her jaw. Just a subtle flicker of her eyes like a muscle she couldn't control. I registered it. She recovered quickly, took a sip from her drink, said, "Oh, I wasn't even aware he was here." I nodded. "Yeah, strange, isn't it?" She laughed and turned away. And I stood there in the midst of people laughing and sharing stories with a heart that had become eerily still. Not shattered, just muted. And within that silence, something was taking shape. A strategy, a confrontation. Not yet. First, I needed to uncover how long this had been occurring and what else she was concealing. I waited until everyone had departed, until the last lawn chair was stacked, until the leftover desserts had been scraped into a container and her dad's half-empty drink was left sweating on the railing. I waited until she was brushing her teeth, humming a tune that made my stomach clench. Not because of the melody, but because she sounded so carefree, as if nothing had transpired. As if she hadn't just hidden a man in our house while her family ate food 20 feet away. She had asked me to host. She had asked me to do the grilling. She had asked me to keep the drinks flowing. She had asked me to be helpful, attentive, and visible. And I had obliged. I always did, but not this time. That night, I sat on the floor in the study, the very room she'd transformed into a cheap rendezvous point while her relatives were close by. I stared at the carpet, trying to discern what had altered. Would it smell like him if I leaned close enough? Could I still sense the residual warmth of the betrayal if I placed my hand on the desk? And then I recalled something insignificant, something that seemed irrelevant until it wasn't. Aurora never clears the browsing history on her tablet. Not because she's careless, because she assumes she doesn't need to. She assumes I'll never touch it. And until that night, she had been correct. I retrieved it from her nightstand while she was in the shower. The screen illuminated with her background, the same ridiculous selfie she took with me years ago at a concert. I wanted to smash the screen. I opened Safari. I didn't even need to scroll. The last tab was still open. How to maintain a secret affair in a shared house. Asking for a friend. LOL. I nearly dropped the tablet. My heart pounded with a rhythm I hadn't felt since my youth. It wasn't just real. It wasn't just physical. It was planned, researched, carefully executed. She hadn't stumbled into something. She had intentionally planned to betray me and looked good doing it. I continued reading. She hadn't posted, just browsed. Comment after comment of people sharing advice as if it were some twisted game. Use separate phones. Only meet during errands. Have a cover story for every room, every room, every room, the study, the laundry room, even the garage. Suddenly, a memory resurfaced from 3 weeks ago. I arrived home early from work. Her car was parked in the driveway. She wasn't in the kitchen. I called out for her. No response. A few minutes later, she emerged from the garage carrying a bag of birdseed. We don't own any birds. Back then, I had laughed. Thought she was being thoughtful, buying seed for the neighborhood birds. Now, I felt nauseous. I ventured into the garage cautiously. She was in the bathroom, blow-drying her hair. I stood there surrounded by tools I never used and boxes I never opened, and just stared. Then I noticed it. A small blanket folded awkwardly behind the water heater. Not rolled, stuffed. Why would anyone store a blanket there? I pulled it out. It reeked of cologne. Not mine. Something sharp, spicy, arrogant lingered on the fibers like a ghost. And then I found the second item. A crumpled receipt from a gas station 30 miles away. 2 sports drinks. A box of protection. A lighter. The date 2 days ago. The same day, she told me she had a terrible headache and spent the afternoon in bed while I worked late covering a colleague's event. So now I understood that this wasn't a lapse in judgment. This wasn't one drunken error behind a locked door. This was a meticulously orchestrated performance. And I was the only one without a script. And still, I hadn't uttered a word. Not because I was indifferent. because I didn't know how to speak without erupting, because if I opened my mouth, I might never stop. So instead, I returned everything to its exact location. I disposed of the blanket with cologne. I snapped a photo of the receipt and emailed it to myself. I closed the tablet and put it back where it belonged. And when she entered the bedroom wearing those silky shorts she knew I admired, smiling, humming, pretending to be the woman I had married, I rolled over and feigned sleep. But sleep wouldn't come because now I had inquiries. Not just about her, about myself. Who was I truly married to? And more importantly, who would I become by remaining? She started waking up earlier. It was imperceptible at first. A few minutes here, 10 minutes there. I used to be the one who made coffee before work. Set the mugs out like some predictable husband. She used to wander in half asleep, yawning, hair tied up with a pencil, mumbling about deadlines and sore feet. But now she was already dressed when I entered the kitchen. Eyeshadow, lip gloss, perfume. She claimed she had meetings, asserted she was part of some new project at work, but she works remotely. Her office is down the hall, and I hadn't seen her on a single Zoom call in weeks. So I started watching, not obsessively. Initially, I'd simply notice things. How she'd take phone calls outside, whispering behind the shed where the Wi-Fi barely reached. How she'd return from errands with bags half empty and cheeks flushed as if she'd just won a prize. I began tracking her routines, her routes, even her gas mileage. She used to fill the tank once a month. Now, it was once every 5 days. I installed a dash cam. She never noticed. She assumed I was still asleep in the mornings. Thought I was the same slow-moving, gentle person who avoided conflict. And maybe I was. But I was also someone who'd been burned so deeply that silence had become my only weapon. The footage arrived 2 days later. I skipped through hours of nothing, of traffic, parked cars, and gas stations. But at 8:17 a.m., something appeared. A silver car parked 3 rows over in an abandoned parking lot. My wife's car pulled up beside it. She didn't exit right away. He did. Felix, baseball cap, hoodie, like a teenager sneaking out. He leaned on her window, then climbed into the passenger seat. The car didn't move for 36 minutes. I don't know what stung more. What they were probably doing in that car, or the fact that she didn't even wince when he kissed her goodbye outside of it. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't afraid. She was accustomed to it. That afternoon, I pretended to forget to take out the garbage. Aurora made a subtle comment about how we needed to establish a routine again. I chuckled, not because it was humorous, because my body didn't know how else to respond. She didn't look at me when she said it. She scrolled on her phone, thumb moving rhythmically as if she wasn't sitting across from someone who had just witnessed her betrayal. Later that night, while she showered, I opened her email. I'd never touched her email before, but I knew the passcode. She used her mother's birthday for everything. There wasn't much. She was discreet, but nestled inside the deleted messages folder was something she'd erased hours earlier. A message with no subject, no greeting, just a hotel name, a room number, and a check-in time. That's it. I stared at it for what felt like an eternity. I didn't weep. I didn't explode. I didn't feel anything but stillness. The kind of stillness people describe before a storm. The next morning, I called in sick. She didn't ask why, just kissed me on the forehead as if I was a puppy who wouldn't comprehend her words anyway. Then she departed, hairstyled, heels on, coat too light for the weather. I waited exactly 40 minutes. Then I followed her. I drove my old car, the one she despises because the AC is broken. I stayed 4 cars behind, watched her take the scenic route, the one that bypassed the city center. She didn't go to work. She went directly to the hotel. It was a mid-range chain. Nothing opulent, but the kind of place with blackout curtains and easy check-in. I parked across the street behind a van and waited. She walked in like she'd done it countless times. She didn't even pause at the door. Didn't glance over her shoulder. And that was the moment. That was the instant I recognized something deeper, something far worse than just betrayal. She didn't feel guilt. Not even a little. She was done concealing. She'd already moved on. I was just the part she hadn't yet figured out how to remove. I didn't follow her inside. That would have been too obvious. And besides, I didn't need to. I'd already witnessed enough. Her entering that hotel, pushing hair from her face as if it were just another casual meeting, was confirmation. I remained in the car, watching the entrance, checking the time. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I don't even remember breathing. At minute 32, something unexpected occurred. Someone knocked on my window. I nearly jumped out of my skin. My first thought was that she had somehow spotted me. That she was dragging me into her plot now, ready to twist things. Maybe. But it wasn't her. It was a man. Late 50s, maybe. Beard, glasses, a jacket with a shop patch. He appeared anxious. "Hey," he said, glancing around quickly. "Are you keeping an eye on a woman that just went inside?" I blinked. My throat constricted. "I work across the street." "I am sorry, man. I wasn't trying to get in your business. Just figured maybe you weren't here by accident." "You saw them?" My door creaked as I opened it, stepping out slowly, unsure if I was about to get mugged or dragged into some psycho story. But what he said next, "She's been coming here 3 times a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, same time. Always meets the same guy. Tall dark hair, bit of a limp. Noticed it when he stepped out of her car once. He drives a blue truck with a cracked light." I stood there stunned. He nodded. "Barlow's shop. I eat lunch in my car every day. She parks in the same spot every time." I swallowed. My voice barely worked. "No, I wasn't." He handed me a card. "If you want security footage from the street, I've got some." Motion triggered. It doesn't show inside the hotel, but it'll show who she came with. License plates and all. I already saved a few files. Didn't know who to give them to. I took the card like it was dangerous. My hand was trembling. I didn't even realize it until he looked at me with sympathy, not pity. Sympathy burns worse. When he left, I sat back down, not moving for another 10 minutes. My wife wasn't just cheating. She wasn't just reckless. She was comfortable. Comfortable enough to make a schedule. Comfortable enough that other people had started taking note of her patterns before I did. What did that say about me? What kind of man doesn't notice his wife slipping away in broad daylight? I waited until she left the hotel. 47 minutes later, Felix sauntered out 2 steps ahead of her, wearing sunglasses and a smirk. He didn't kiss her, didn't even touch her. It made things worse. They were beyond that now. Beyond the puppy love phase. This was just routine, mechanical, like brushing your teeth. She trailed him to the parking lot. They didn't exchange many words. She got into her car. He drove off first. She sat behind the wheel, checking herself in the mirror, reapplying her lip gloss. Then she exhaled slowly as if she was relieved. Then she called me. My phone buzzed in my lap. I stared at it, stunned. Her name right there, cheerful as ever. I answered after the 3rd ring. "Hey hon," she said. Her voice was relaxed. "Just finished my meeting. Traffic's terrible, but I'll be home in like 30. I looked at her car across the street. I could still see her adjusting her seatbelt. "Okay," I said tonelessly. "Drive safe." She chuckled as if my tone was some quirky inside joke. "You sound like my dad." I said nothing. She hung up. That night, I skipped dinner. I told her I wasn't feeling well. She offered to make soup. I said I'd already had something earlier. She didn't insist. She just kissed my cheek and disappeared into the bedroom, scrolling through social media. But I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was staring at the shop card in my hand because tomorrow I was going to that shop. And I wasn't returning empty-handed. The shop didn't look like much from the outside. Just a squat brick building with chipped paint and a dented vending machine out front that probably hadn't worked since the 90s. The sign above the entrance read Barlow's shop. And even though I had the card in my pocket, my legs still faltered as I approached the door. What kind of husband walks into a shop to obtain evidence that his wife is having an affair? Apparently, me. Inside, it reeked of oil, tires, and stale coffee. Behind the counter stood the same man from the previous day. Beard, glasses, and a knowing look. "You came," he said. "Follow me." No small talk. He led me through a narrow hallway into a back office. A mini fridge hummed beside a desk covered in computer parts. He opened a window on an old monitor. "I'll pull this morning's footage," he said. I clicked play. The first video showed her car pulling in just like he said. Timestamp 8:14 a.m. The silver sedan drove slowly, then parked neatly. 2 minutes later, the blue truck pulled up beside her. The man who emerged wasn't anxious. He was casual. He even stopped to check his hair in the side mirror before opening her door. She chuckled when he climbed in. The entire car swayed as they stayed parked for nearly an hour. I felt the breath leave my body. "She's been doing this for a while," the man next to me said. "I didn't know she was your wife." "She's always the same guy, same car, same look on her face." I didn't respond. I was watching another clip now. Same routine. She brought coffee that time. She said hi to him through the car window. "Is she that happy with you?" he asked gently. The question caught me off guard. Not in years. The sky was dim and heavy. The woman I shared a bed with was having an affair. She wasn't sorry. I drove to the river instead, parked, and stared out at the water for what felt like hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. The woman I shared a bed with was in love with someone else. She wasn't sorry. I was just the part she didn't remove. When I finally returned to the house, her car was gone. I went inside. The house smelled like candles, like she tried to make it feel like a home. There was a note. Went to the store. Want anything? I stared at that stupid heart. She was out buying pillows. That's when something shifted. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. It started with the drawer. It was in the hallway where we kept spare batteries. A place no one looked twice at. But I remembered something odd. 2 weeks ago, I saw her shoving something inside while cleaning. I pulled it open with steady hands. There it was. A prepaid phone. She thought I'd never find it. Probably used it when she was away. Probably called it her backup. I didn't hesitate. I turned it on. There were no contacts, but the messages were still there. Felix, same room tomorrow. You want me to bring the thing? Aurora. Yeah. And shut up. Felix. No underwear. You make me lose control. Aurora. Per baby. Let's see. There were pictures, too. Not graphic, just suggestive. The kind that would never make it to court. Her in a towel. She had a whole other life. And it wasn't just physical. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't smash it. I slid it right back into the drawer. Because that's what she expected me to do. And I wasn't going to give her that. Instead, I wrote her a note. A threat. I took one of our nice cards. And I wrote, I hope he makes you feel good. I hope he's happy. I hope it works out. I stayed at a motel. I laid on the bed and stared at the ceiling until morning. My phone buzzed with calls. 2 texts. Hey, where are you? I'm freaking out. Please answer. That was the first time she used my name in months. The next day, I went to my cousin's cabin. He's never home. I made coffee, sat by the stove, and started writing a list. Not of things to do, a list of questions. By the 3rd cup of coffee, I realized something. I didn't want revenge. I wanted to see her reaction. She didn't call the next day or the one after. I imagined 100 versions of what she might be doing. But I wasn't drowning anymore. I spent 4 days alone in that cabin. No TV, no phone, just my thoughts. On the 5th day, I heard a car. It was her. She stepped out slowly, clutching the card I'd left behind. Her eyes were puffy, her hair messy, no makeup. She didn't knock at first. She just stood there. Then a quiet knock. I opened the door. We didn't speak. She looked at me like she was seeing something unfamiliar. She handed me the card. Her hand trembled. Why are you here? I asked. Because I'm sorry. You were right, she said. I studied her. She had something broken, but something starting to heal. I simply said what I knew was real. I don't hate you, I said, but I'm not coming home. She left the porch. I chose me. 2 weeks later, I found a cottage near the coast. Not a bookstore yet, but the beach is close. I wake up early and smile at strangers I don't owe explanations to. Some nights I still feel the echo of what happened. And that, I've learned, is healing.